Good evening and welcome to Talking Sports with Evan. I am Evan Witalison and your host of Talking Sports with Evan. And yes, I know obviously who else should be hosting Talking Sports with Evan. But anyway, I appreciate you all tuning in, either watching on Facebook on at Talking Sports with Evan, talking on YouTube, same Talking Sports with Evan, on X at Evan with Sports. And it's a bye week edition of Talking Sports with Evan, as the Badgers and the Packers are both on bye weeks this week. So it's a bye week edition of tonight's show. So for the show tonight, I'm going to talk about the Packers and the Lions. I was there at Lambeau Field with my buddy Scott. Thank you, Scott, for allowing me to go with you to the game. But I was at the game on Sunday in the rainy and wet and cold temperatures. And, it's always just a fun time to be at Lambeau Field. It really is. I want to say a big shout out to Good Karma Brands for allowing me to be at their Tundra Trio tailgate house. Had some able to stop by there and mingle with some colleagues of mine and, enjoy some beverages and food. And, it's just always a fun time to be at Lambeau Field, even with the weather and the final score and whatnot. But overall, like I said, it's always a fun time to be at Lambeau. But obviously, the game did not go the way us Packer fans wanted it to go. And I'm going to spend some time talking about that, talking about the game and why I think we just have to to steal a line from a former Packer quarterback who now plays on the East Coast, relax. Okay. It always sucks to lose. And this was a tough game. This was a tough loss. 24-14. Very tough loss to watch. Very tough loss to be at. And on the surface, it looked like it was just a good old fashioned butt whooping by Detroit. Honestly, that is what it looked like. I'm not going to sit here and put flowers up and rainbows and butterflies and tell you all of that. Detroit won and Detroit earned the victory. But my point is, I don't think the game was as bad as we are all making it seem to be. And I think there's a few things that happened in the game that have went the other direction. We're talking about a Packer win or at least a much closer loss. But there are some things that is concerning, and I'm going to talk about that. And I put the question out on X earlier, and then a new social media site that I'm getting used to using, Blue Sky, posed the question on Blue Sky as well. Same username as my X account at Evan with Sports. You can find me on there. What are your biggest concerns going into the bye, and what are you most optimistic about? So I'm going to talk about those answers as well, and give you some tough opinions, and show the Bucs some maybe a little bit of tough love right now. As the Bucs are struggling big time right now. They have one win on the season. They're currently losing to the Utah Jazz, who also have one win on the season, and it's just tough to watch with the Bucs out right now. And then that basically is where I will end things at here tonight. And now it's 42-35. The Bucs are kind of falling asleep to start the second quarter after playing pretty good game in the first quarter. So things are definitely not going the Bucs' way early on in the second quarter. And I'm going to talk about my concerns there. So basically now I'm going to start with the Packers. The Green Bay Packers, unfortunately, fell to the Lions 24-14. And as I mentioned, the weather sucked, and there's some negative things to take out of it. I'm going to cover those things right now. Jordan Love's interception hurt. The interception was very, very tough to watch. It was another trying to do too much, trying to trust his arm too much type of throw, and it got intercepted and returned for a touchdown. That was tough. But you also had, I believe, 6 drops in the game. One of those drops would have went for a score. They ended up being stuffed on 4th and 1, and the Lions got the ball back. Three of the drops would have went for a first down. One of the drops led to a field goal. One of the other drops led to a missed field goal. Lots of penalties, too. Lots of typically uncharacteristic penalties. And to me, that's not a lack of talent. That's the lack of focus. Because if you look at the stats, the Packers outgained the Lions 411 to 261 in total yards. The Packers threw for 273 yards, the Lions for 137. The Packers ran for 138, the Lions 124. The Packers averaged 6.6 yards per play, the Lions 4.7. The Packers 20 first downs to the Lions 17. Packers ran 62 total plays, the Lions ran 55, and the Lions had to punt the ball 4 times. 4 times. When you look at just those numbers, 9 times out of 10, that's a game the Packers should win. That really is a game that the Packers should win when you look at those numbers. But when you dig deeper, Packers had an interception that went for a touchdown. The Lions had no turnovers. The Lions had 5 penalties for 51 yards. The Packers 10 penalties for 67 yards. Packers had a missed field goal. Packers, as I mentioned, had 6 drops. So, on the surface, 24-14 looks ugly, looks rough, looks like the Lions just bullied the Packers. But in reality, it was a game full of unforced errors that you can't afford to make when you're playing a team of the Detroit Lions level. The Lions are right here. Packers are probably about here and somewhere in here. The Lions are here. To beat a team like the Lions, you can't make mistakes. And we saw it last season. I know last season, but we saw it last year when the September Gold Package game, and I bring that up because I was there in September at Lambeau Field when the Packers beat the Lions and just completely got annihilated. And there was some of the same issues that we saw Sunday popped their ugly head back in that first matchup last year. Then, fast forward to November last year, the Packers play a perfect game, get pressure on the quarterback, first turnover. Jordan Love doesn't throw an interception. They don't fumble the ball. They convert third downs. They convert in the red zone. And the Packers easily beat the Lions 29-22. And the game was not that close. I know the final score looked close, but the game was not that close. So you had a game where you had a lot of mistakes and errors, turn it into a game where you played near perfect football. In order to beat the Lions, the Packers have to play near perfect football, and they can do it. They've done it against the Lions before, and I anticipate and look forward to the Packers' next game against the Lions in Detroit because I think with the weather conditions, things might be easier for Green Bay. And I don't know if it was the rain. I don't know if it was the wind. I don't know if it was what it was, but the Packers lacked focus. They lacked focus on Sunday, and the Lions looked like the better coached, better prepared, better ready to go to war team. And the Packers, they looked like they wanted literally nothing to do with being on that field and the ugly weather and the ugly temperatures and the ugly everything. They look like a team that didn't want to be out there. And when you're playing in a rain game, and I know I've never played in a rain game at that level, but it's hard. It sucks. You're wet. You're miserable. You have really no cover to go anywhere. Us as fans, we can go to the atrium to dry off a little bit. But you're stuck under the rain for 4 quarters, and it's hard. And it's hard to stay focused. And that's what looked like the Packers were lacking. They looked like a team that wasn't focused in this game. You got the Bears coming up out of the bye in Chicago. Got to be focused. The Bears, even with their warts, They're a better football team than they were last year. And you're going to have to go into Chicago and show them that you still own the Bears. That's what you're going to have to do. And I'm going to talk more about that next week and attempt to get a guest on the show to talk about that game as well. But you're going to have to stay focused. You're going to have to be motivated. You're going to have to be not make mistakes and not shoot not shoot yourself in the foot. You just can't. You just can't do that. You're going to suffer like you did against Detroit if you continue to shoot yourselves in the foot. Packers at the bye. Going to start with my team MVP, my offensive player of the year, my defensive player of the year. My team MVP right now is Xavier McKinney. Xavier McKinney has been a godsend to the Packers. He's gotten interceptions in all but 3 games this year. He has been great in coverage. He ranks at currently number 4 in NFL safeties and pass defense, and you can see that teams are starting to scheme around Xavier McKinney. To me, he's the best safety in the league, and to me, he is the MVP for the Packers right now. Offensive player of the year, I got to give to Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs won you the Jacksonville game. Josh Jacobs has been a breath of fresh air in the backfield, and this is from a guy who loved, as a big fan, loved Aaron Jones, but Josh Jacobs does things that Aaron Jones just can't do, and that's be a true bell cow tailback. He can carry the ball 20 to 30 times a game. Now, the Packers only gave it to him 13 times, 8 of those, I believe, in the first half, but he's a guy that can carry the ball between 15 to 30 times and not miss a beat. To me, Jacobs has been the offensive player of the year. The defensive player of the year, I already said his name, Xavier McKinney, has been, as I mentioned, just been a godsend to the defense. My defensive rookie of the year, I will give to Evan Williams. It's between Edgerrin Cooper and Evan Williams, and I think Evan Williams has done as a rookie safety has just been outstanding. And there's not really a rookie on the offense that I can really give it to because Morgan is really the only rookie that has gotten significant playing time on offense. Other guys who could deserve consideration for offensive player will be Tucker Kraft, your tight end, Jaden Reed, who had 5 catches for 113 yards against the Lions. He'd be another one to consider, but that's where I lean towards right now. Here's where I'm going to read your responses. I put the question out on my social media accounts. Biggest worry and most optimistic about going into the second half. And the thing is, I agree with a lot of these. Biggest concern is that defensive line. Correct. Yeah, that defensive line is definitely a concern. And they just traded away Preston Smith for a 7th-round pick. So your defensive line, you just gave up a veteran, and now you're basically you're hoping that the young guys can step up with more playing time and things go better than they have been. I'm all in on the Hafley bandwagon, but yikes, Clark and Gary have regressed. Most optimistic about Love getting healthy and putting together another second half streak like last year. And I think that's the key. Love getting healthy because he starts in Philadelphia, gets hurt, misses 2 games, comes back in Minnesota, looks rusty, comes out with in the Houston game, looks very good against Houston, looks good against the Rams, and then doesn't play well against Jacksonville, re-injures his groin, looked inconsistent against Detroit. Hopefully this bye week is going to give Jordan Love an opportunity to get his body healthy, get 100%, and go into the second half of the season going on that streak that we saw last year, or if not exactly that same streak, playing some very good football for the second half of the year and preferably stop throwing so many interceptions. Biggest concern by Mickey, lack of consistent pass rush. That will come to bite us in the big game. Have to be able to pressure guys like Goff and Purdy, or they'll pick you apart. Again, pass rush, big concern. Got to figure out how to get consistent pressure on the opposing offense. I'm most optimistic about Jay Love reducing his mistakes, poor decisions. Think Love and the offense will get rolling soon. Diego, fixing the mental mistakes, causing penalties for concern. Optimistic with the bye that everyone is fully healthy. And again, the mental mistakes are concerning. They're a young team. They didn't have these mental mistakes last year, especially when they went on that big run. And now they're playing undisciplined football. And LaFleur needs to figure it out as the head coach and get the problem fixed. See, I'm new on this Blue Sky account, and I have I'm still learning how to use it, and I had a lot of people reply. So that's the comments on Blue Sky. On X, at Evan with Sports, PJ Hunter, play with some discipline. So that goes along with the mental mistakes. Tired of watching them beat themselves even when they win. The 3 games. And then Literal Cheesehead chimes in, this 100%. The 3 games they lost were achievable wins had they not had so many self-inflicted wounds. And PJ chimes in again, and a crucial moment as well. They'll turn the momentum. Mike, they need to come out swinging, ready to go, and fired up. Above all, they need to focus. Again, focus. They need to focus. Biggest problem the Packers are having, it seems like they're lacking focus, and that's hopefully something that changes coming out of the bye. So that's my here we go. From Linda Pack, need Love to quit throwing interceptions. Excited about the rest of the offense, especially when Love isn't throwing interceptions. But yeah, that is true. Love needs to cut down on the interceptions, and I would say about 3 of the interceptions are not really his fault. I think I'm comfortable enough to say that 3 of the interceptions are not Jordan Love's fault. Rest of them needs to, maybe not trust his arm quite as much as he has been at times. Let's just take what the defense is giving you, throw to the open guy, run the offense how it needs to be ran. I think that would be probably something to get started with right now if you're Jordan Love. But I brought those up because I got the same concerns. Mental mistakes, penalties in tough times, turnovers in tough situations. Those are all concerning to me. You get penalties at the worst possible time. You had a very good kickoff return to open the game against the Lions, and Keyshawn Nixon couldn't keep his head and gets penalized 15 yards. And I know we talk about, well, what did he do? What did he do? He got into a player on the Lions' face and made a gesture towards him, and the official felt like it was unsportsmanlike conduct, and it brought back the Packers up 15 yards. Little things build up to big things. You got to play more discipline than that. Oh, one other mention I forgot was a cornerback 2 is their biggest concern. And the secondary outside of Jair, who can't seem to stay healthy, is a concern at the cornerback position. I think safety, they're good, especially if Evan Williams is healthy. But you got Keyshawn Nixon, who isn't very good. You have Eric Stokes, who isn't very good. You have Carrington Valentine, who's struggling at times. I can definitely see the concern at cornerback, too. But I'm very optimistic about what this team can do. We saw them flip the switch a year ago. And a year ago, they were, I think it was flipped around. They're 6-3 right now. I think a year ago, they were 3-6. I believe. They were 3-6 and came out of the bye and laid a dud. They lost going into the bye. They lost coming out of the bye. And things look very bleak for the Packers at this time last year. They're 6-3. They're a good team. They got talent. They're a talented team. We just have to deal with the early head-scratching mistakes and just trust that LaFleur is going to get it figured out. And I think he will eventually get it figured out with the team. So I'm optimistic that they will get it figured out. And I'm optimistic that Jordan Love I'm not saying he's going to be the Jordan Love we saw a year ago, but I think if he can play close to that, limit the mistakes, I think the team is going to be fine. Now you just got to figure out how to make a pass rush happen at the end of the day. That's my Packer thoughts. Going to jump over to Milwaukee Bucks. Currently losing 55-52, being outscored in the second quarter, 26-21. Have about a minute 50 to go in the first half, and the Bucks are very concerning. And it's frustrating more, I guess, because you have two of the best players in the game, in Damian Lillard and Giannis Antetokounmpo, but yet you still are losing games you should be winning, and now you have Damian Lillard missing a free throw, which he never does. It's the Bucks starting five have played extremely well together, aside from Gary Trent Jr. inability to score. But the bench has been awful, and I think that's my biggest concern about the Milwaukee Bucks right now is their bench. Their bench is very concerning. Their bench is very worrisome, and that is ultimately something the Bucks need to work on and get more consistency out of the bench. Now today the Bucks switch it up a little bit, and they ended up starting Andre Jackson Jr. in place of Gary Trent Jr. to see if they could get some kind of spark. And Jackson has 4 points and 2 fouls. He's a +5. Trent has 2 points coming off the bench as a -14. And the other concern on the Bucks bench is Bobby Portis. Tonight he's got 5 points. He's 2 for 7, and he's -13. AJ Green is -14. Pat Connaughton is -10. The entire Bucks bench is not playing well, and the bench of the Jazz are playing significantly better. Clarkson, 12 points off the bench. Johnny Juzang, 12 points off the bench. And the Bucks are once again struggling to stop the three-pointers as the Jazz have now made 2 in a row down the floor. So things that the Bucks really need to improve on. I still think the Bucks are going to be in the playoffs. I still think they're going to be in the upper half of the Eastern Conference, top 3, top 4 seed. The Eastern Conference is a hot mess right now. Only 2 teams over 500 currently in the Eastern Conference. So there's still plenty of ground for the Bucks to gain and start doing better. So with that said, thank you all for watching the show here tonight. New show will be next week, recapping, not recapping anything because, hell, the Packers are on a bye. Previewing Packers and Bears and try to get ready for that game and then the Badgers game against number 1 ranked Oregon. So with that said, thank you so much for watching the show. I appreciate it. I love having this platform that I can talk sports with you for 30 minutes to an hour each and every week. Make sure to find the podcast starting tomorrow. Anywhere podcasts are found. Appreciate you all. I will get back at you